Hello everyone, welcome to yet another brand new episode of the Third Man Cricket Show presenting the Experts Corner. Today we have a very special personality with us. He's an entrepreneur, a motivational speaker, an innovator, and also an aftermarket expert. On top of all, he's doing a wonderful things to spread cricket in many countries where people cannot afford the kit prices as well. Welcome Mr. Samuel Prakash Thevanayagam. Welcome sir.
Thank you. It's nice to be with you today.
So, starting with the first question from my side is tell us something about your journey. How is that been till now?
So I would say that it's been very much like cricket, right? There has been success and there has been failure. That's the neat thing about life, right? Because life has many twists and turns, right? There's a lot of unpredictability. You're playing on different pitches, right? Sometimes you get to play on your home ground and your home turf, and other times that you have to play away games and you have to play different bowlers. You have to play, So there is so much how cricket is to life. And so you asked me how my journey was. The journey is unpredictable, right? Especially as an entrepreneur, as a father, as a husband, there is a lot of unpredictability in life. And it's important to be able to face every ball as it comes.
Right. That was really wonderful to know, sir, to start with. Sir, I would like to know how did you connect with the sport of cricket? Because where did the liking develop from? Because when we saw your website as well, you have done a lot in the field of cricket, basically. So how did you develop a liking towards the game?
Yeah, I would say from the time I was a very small baby, I probably was weaned on cricket. My father used to play cricket. My father was many things. He was an army officer. He was a husband. He was a father. He was somebody that was very involved in his church. But if you ask me how best to define my father, I would say that he was defined by cricket. He played cricket. He captained cricket. He taught a lot about cricket. He talked a lot about cricket. And when he was growing up, there was no television. So he would actually listen to commentaries, and especially with England, Australia, England, India. And so from the time I was a very small person, I grew up, I was weaned on cricket. And I was the oldest, I'm his oldest son. So he used to fondly call me Mahan. I was actually born on his birthday. So it was was a natural thing that as soon as I was able to walk, probably one of the first gifts that I had was a bat. And so I was introduced to cricket from the time I was very, very small.
That's been a wonderful journey, sir.
Yeah, sir. So coming to the next question, that was a great that you told about your liking toward the cricket, your journey. So coming to the next question, sir, how did the idea of coming up with a book pop up in your mind? We know that you had a book that the first 10 runs in singles. So how did the idea pop up for that book? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so as I told you, my father played a very important role in my life. And I lost my father about 25 years ago. And one of the things that I wanted to do was to memorialize my father. And so I thought of a beautiful way of doing that was to be able to put together some things that I thought my father had taught me that he had passed on. He had used the game of cricket to teach me the game of life. And so so I thought that this would be a great way to not only memorialize him, but to be able to leave a legacy for my father. So my children had never met my father. There is a lot of people that never may have met my father, but I wanted a way to memorialize my father, to create a legacy for him, and to be able to teach young people those lessons that he taught me. I thought it would be a great way to be able to pass it on. I don't want to take any credit for the idea. I believe it was a God idea that was dropped into my mind, and of course I executed on it.
So, sir, coming to the next question, which is also based on your book as well. So, what made you name your book "The First 10 Runs in Singles"?
Yeah, so I started playing organized cricket when I was 7 or 8 years old, and from the first time I went into bat, I was a middle order batsman for most of my life. One of the first examples or one of the first pieces of advice my father gave me was when I used to go into bat. was to make sure that I was getting my first 10 runs in singles. So that's a concept that he was teaching, right? And naturally he was teaching that about cricket. But there is so much that we can learn from what he was teaching regarding cricket to life. There was a time, I remember when I played against Arvinder Ranatunga's team. I was 16 years old. My team and his team were in the finals. And I remember the bowler pitched me middle and leg, and I hit the first ball for a six. First ball, I was up there, ball was pitched middle and leg. I swung at it and I pulled it off for a six. And I can still remember my father telling me the first 10 runs in singles. And it's interesting because my stroke was a very aggressive stroke. My team was down by 5 wickets. It was not the time for me to be aggressive. I needed to actually follow my father's advice. So after I hit that six, I then started to settle down and bat because my team was actually struggling and I needed to build a foundation. So I went back to build that foundation. So I would say the first 10 runs in singles is extremely foundational, right? What it's saying is, if you focus on the little things, the big things will take care of themselves. And I can truly tell you that in every role of my life, whether it's being a father to my 5 children, whether it is being a husband, whether it is being an entrepreneur and being president and CEO of my company, I think that that's great advice. That is, if you focus on the little things, the big things will take care of themselves. That's not always how we live life, right? We always want to do the big thing well, right? But I have learned if we do the little things right, the big things will take care of themselves. And I can tell you that, as I say that, I don't want for the listener who's listening to think, well, everything is perfect, right? That's not what I'm saying at all, right? What I'm saying is the focus of our attention, right? Because we fail. In life, we fail a lot, right? In all of my roles, all of my responsibilities, they say that baseball is a game of failure. And I would say that's true about cricket, right? You go through bad patches. You don't bowl well. You don't bat well. Sometimes you miss easy catches. These are easy. This is very common, right? This is the way life is. So in life, it's how we embrace that failure. It's how we are able to take on that failure and to be able to bounce back from it.
Right, so that was a wonderful answer, and indeed the concept because of which you named your book The First 10 Runs in Singles is basically a very beautiful concept that your dad taught you, and it was really wonderful to know about it. Going ahead, sir, you just mentioned that being an entrepreneur, a CEO of the company, a husband, a father to your children, and everything that you have been doing. I just want to ask you, how difficult is it to manage everything? Because it's obviously not being easy because you have your job, then you have to give time to your family as well. So how difficult was it to manage everything, or how difficult is it still to pay attention to every aspect of life?
It's a challenge, isn't it? Having said that, though, there was a lady preacher who said that when God gives us this many challenges, He also gives us that much grace, right? So it's true that God doesn't give us more than we can handle, right? Sometimes in different seasons there might be a perspective where we think that He has given us more than we can handle, but because He is God, He is going to give us as much grace as we need to be able to handle the challenges that we have, right? So it's important for us to be able to live life in that place, right, where we recognize that God is not going to give us more than we can handle. Yes, there are challenges, right? There are family challenges, there are business challenges, but we need to make sure that we are living in that zone where we recognize that God has given us that ability to be able to, and the endurance to be able to handle every season, right? So in India and in Sri Lanka, we have different seasons. We have the rainy seasons, right? We have the monsoon, right? And so in the same way, in life, there are different seasons, and it's just important for us in that particular season that we operate correctly. Sometimes we're operating out of season, so it's just important for us to surround ourselves. I have a very good wife who's constantly talking to me about what I should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing, and I can tell you that I listen. Same thing with regard to my leadership team. I have a very strong leadership team. So you don't have a team and not listen to them, right? So the times that I've made mistakes or the times that I have, not necessarily done the right thing is because I didn't listen, right? So, even though we have a relationship with God and God is there and we are here, right? He puts people in our lives to teach us. I have an advisory board. I don't have an advisory board that meets with me, but I have an advisory board that I meet with. Depending on what I need, I pull value. They say in business and in life, the best way to get value is rather than push value, to actually pull value from people, right? So I have surrounded myself with people that I pull value from, get advice from, get direction from, get guidance from. Sometimes I know what I'm supposed to be doing, but I get guidance and validation that that's what I should be doing.
Yes, sir. That's a wonderful answer. Thank you very much for your insights.
And let me explain it like this. There's a beautiful chapter in my book about taking your guard, right? And there is in no other sport is there a place where you're actually taking your guard, where the batsman is taking guard, right? And you are actually lining up with the wicket, and you're asking the umpire for direction on where exactly you are in relationship to the wicket. That is a great example of how we need to go through life, right? And the beautiful thing about taking guard is you can do that as many times as you want to. You can do that every ball. You can do that every over. You can do that when you've achieved a milestone like get a 50 or 100. You can go back and take guard, right? It's a great way to be able to have your bearings about where you are in the season of your life, and to be able to get direction and guidance from somebody, and to be able to get your life fundamentally aimed correctly, right? I think that's a great example. It's one of the chapters in the book that I talk about. It's one of my favorite chapters because we need to be aligned to truth. We need to be aligned to absolutes because absolutes don't change. We need to change. And then we have other people that we can reach out for guidance and direction so that they can tell us where we are in that season.
Well, thank you very much, sir, for your insights. No wonder you're a motivational speaker, sir. Thank you very much. You can go ahead.
Okay, so we all know that you had an interaction with Sir Julian Richards. Like we all know how legend of the cricket game he has been. So how was your interaction with him?
Sir I can't say enough about him. He is an unbelievable human being. I got to see him play when I was 12 years old. In 1975, he toured Sri Lanka in between a tour to India and Pakistan. He played in Sri Lanka. So my first perception of him, or the way that I first understood him was as a 12-year-old when he hit 2 sixers, one after the other at the SSC grounds. The next time I saw him was in 1985. I went to Madame Tussauds and I saw a wax statue of him. And I remember taking pictures in England. I took a picture of him, and I was so fascinated by that. And then I went to Antigua because my church was on a mission trip in Antigua, and I went to Antigua and I got to meet him. It was an incredible experience. There are not too many people that I have wanted to meet, but Sir Will is somebody that I wanted to meet, and so it was a desire that God gave me. It was a very simple desire, but it's a desire that God gave me, and I've met him multiple times. I've done multiple things with him, and it's been a great experience.
Sir, if I may just add a question to that, sir, you had the privilege to meet Sir Rebound Resilience. He was obviously, a great player, a legend of the game. If I may ask you, what do you think separates legends from, average or good players? Because many people speak about the mindset or the attitude that players play with. So, what do you think separates players, separates great players that are legends from the ones who just remain to be average or good?
I would say, I think that it's where his attitude, right, and his work ethic, come together, right? A lot of people have a lot of aptitude, I tell people, because I live in the US, a lot of people don't know Sir Viv Richards. So when I talk about Sir Viv Richards, I say that he's the Michael Jordan of cricket. And if you look at Michael Jordan, he is somebody that was a fierce competitor. He was somebody that worked hard at his game. I have watched a lot of Michael Jordan's life because there was a recent episodes where they show you all about Michael Jordan's life, and he was somebody that worked hard at what he did, right? And so I'm sure that you have a lot of readers who are young people, right? You have to be able to apply yourself, right? You have to show aptitude in whether it's your job, whether it's a talent, whether it's a sport. You have to be able to work at it so that you can master it, right? And so what I would tell you is that people like Michael Jordan and like people like Sir Wilt, people like Tiger Woods, they have actually mastered the game, right? And they have been practicing and they have been doing things in secret where nobody is watching, right? They have been working at their craft from the time they were very young, and they always had that it factor, but behind that it factor, they put a lot of work into it, and you can see that.
Certainly, sir. And we all enjoy watching them on the screen whenever we do. Thank you for your opinion. Niklesh, you can ask.
Yeah. So you told us about the journey of Vivian Richards, how he was approaching towards his game, towards his life. So talking about the journey, I think any journey we talk about is incomplete without challenges. So sir, can you go through about that major challenges you faced during your journey as an entrepreneur, as a cricket, anything, sir? So what were those major challenges you faced during this journey of yours?
Yeah. So for me, I was actually working for somebody else. I had a very good job as a vice president of a company, and because of a mistake that I made, I was let go. Well, not only was I let go, they told me that I could not work in my industry for about 2 years. I had to sign a non-compete that I would not work in the industry that was extremely familiar to me in order to be able to support my family at that time. And if you think about it, that was a very devastating time in my life. But that is the beauty of life, right? It's not what happens to us, it's how we respond to that thing that happens to us. And I can tell you that even though it was my mistake, it was a mistake that I made. So I couldn't blame anybody else for it. So the first thing that I did was take responsibility, right, for what the mistake that I made. So rather than sit there and blame somebody else and blame the situation and make excuses, I took responsibility for the mistake that I made, number one. But number two, I recognized that even though I made the mistake, that mistake did not define who I was, or that quality that resulted in the mistake that I made was not going to define me, right? It was a mistake that I made. I was able to stand clear away from the mistake I made and say to myself, yes, I made that mistake, but I need to learn from it, but I need to move on, more importantly. And I think one of the most important things that my parents gave me, so when my parents passed away, they didn't leave us with a lot of money, but what they did do was they taught us a lot with regard to unconditional love. So I would ask you, what is unconditional love? Right? Unconditional love is to be loved not because of how you perform, but it's devoid of performance. Right? It's something as a father I do with my children. I love my children when they perform, but I also love them when they don't perform, when they've made mistakes, when they've had failures. So it's something that my parents taught me, and even though they were not around when I was going through this period, what they had taught me, started to click in my head. And I recognized that I was loved unconditionally by God, by my own family at that time, my wife and children. And then I started to put together the next steps in order to come back, right? And so it's important for us to be able to think about life like that, right? There will always be waves that crash us, right? We need to be able to pick ourselves up. So if you guys are in Delhi or Bombay?
Mumbai, sir.
Mumbai. Right? So you know what? I have been to the ocean in Mumbai, right? Sometimes during the rainy season, the waves can be very, very ferocious, right? It's the Arabian Sea, I believe, right? Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
So I've actually been there, and the waves can crush you, right? But we need to be able to stand up again, to be able to to be able to enjoy the ocean, because there's going to be another wave coming, right? And so in life, it's being able to continue to work on picking ourselves up and being able to handle that next wave.
Yes, sir.
Sir,
That's correct.
so you told us about how to just face the challenges. Just we need to get up again and ready to face the another challenges. And you mentioned about that about the life that you failed, you make mistakes, but we don't need to make any excuses and just get on the responsibility again and stand up. So can you tell how difficult it's been to get again take the responsibility? So what should be the mindset? What should be the mindset? What should be the thinking to get up after the failure and get those responsibilities? So what should be the mindset of an individual?
So I think the mindset needs to be a positive mindset, right? So many of us, we are God-fearing people, right? We recognize that God is there. So, how do we trust in God? What is our belief system, right? If we believe in a God that can only love us when we are doing things right, when everything is going well, I'm not so sure that that's the type of God that I want to serve. That's not the type of God I want to worship, right? So the God that I serve, right, is because of His goodness, because of His grace, that I am able to worship Him, I am able to know Him, right? So He does not change, right? We change. We make mistakes, right? We fail, but God does not fail. The Bible says God does not fail. What does that mean? That and the Bible also says He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. So that the period that we are going through is a period, it's a condition that we are going through during that period, right? It will change. So as I talk to you about waves, right, there will be a calm sea, right? Talking about cricket, there will be a pitch that we're going to be successful at. There will be a ball that we're going to be successful in facing, right? So it's not permanent, right? It's a temporary thing that we have to go through, and we have to, number one, take responsibility. Number two, recognize that even though we fail, God does not fail. He doesn't change, and as long as we trust Him, we look to the people around us who love us and care for us, and we get through that period, right? So the example that I would like to give, so when I was growing up, I grew up in Sri Lanka until I was 22 years old. So at 18, I was not doing very well in school, and my father said, stop wasting your time and my money, and he sent me to work. And I worked as a commodity broker in rubber. Right? So if you think about rubber, Sri Lanka used to have a lot of natural rubber. And the beautiful thing about natural rubber compared to synthetic rubber is natural rubber has something called short-term memory. It has the ability, if you push it, it comes back. Right? So that's why when we play cricket down the street, we use a rubber ball. Why? Because it bounces. Right? And so this understanding of coming back, right, when you push something, that's why it's a fantastic seal material, because when you push it into something, it goes in there and then it expands. And when it expands, it actually stops the leak from happening. So it's called rebound resilience or short-term memory. So this understanding, I tell young people all the time, it's important for us to have this ability to spring back like a cat, right? When you throw a cat, I'm not recommending that you do that, but if you see a cat, when it lands, it always lands on its feet, right?
Yes.
It knows how to land on its feet and is ready to look at the next move. And that's how we ought to be in life. There will be failure, there will be things that happen that are uncomfortable, that are difficult, but we need to be able to land on our feet and to be able to come back. And we need God, we need loved ones around us, right? We need to surround ourselves with people who are positive as a way to be able to do that. Because again, this is why I think there is so much from cricket and life. Just like in cricket, life is a team sport, right? You need other people to pick you up sometimes, right? So you miss a catch, somebody else takes that next catch, and guess what? The game starts to change again, right? So we need to develop that team that is around us.
Sorry, sir. That's a fantastic answer. Thank you very much for it. Sir, if you had to give one advice to all of us sports management students, because we are just four people here, but there are a lot of students, our friends sitting back at our institute who are sports management professionals aspiring to be sports managers and anything in the sports industry. So, if you had to give one advice to all of us going ahead, that how we should keep our mindset and what should we look out for at the sports in the sports industry, what would that advice be? What kind of attitude should we maintain going ahead?
Okay, so that's a good question, and I can't tell you that I am in sports management, but what I can tell you is you have to focus on your customer, and you have to focus on your customer's customer, right? So let me set that up a little bit. When I was about 8 or 9 years old, I played in my first organized cricket match, right? It was St. Thomas's Prep against a school called Prince of Wales. And I was in the first slip. It was my first organized match. I was at first slip and I missed 3 catches, right? And my father wasn't there because of he was in the army and duty called and he was not there. And I remember talking to him that evening, in a regular phone, and he called and said, "Son, how did you do?" And I said, "Papa, I missed 3 catches." And he said, "Son, watching the bat is not enough. You need to watch the bowler's arm," right? What he was telling me is you need to pay attention, right, from the bowler's arm into the bat and from into the bat into my hands, right? So how does that, so that's in cricket. But how does that translate in the field of business that we're talking about or in sports management? Not only should you be keeping an eye on your customer, but you need to understand your customer's customer. Most times we are only thinking in terms of a customer that is in front of us, but we need to understand a little bit further, right? So in quality, they would call that root cause analysis, right? Or understanding the why, right? To ask why 5 times, so why does a spectator come to a game, right? And keep asking the why until you get to the root cause, until you get to the real minutia of what is going on. Once you do that, now you can build on that, right? And so I would say in business, it's very important for us to understand the why people do what they're doing, so when you talk in terms of sports management, right, there is a why and there is a customer, but there is always a customer's customer. So let me ask you a question. In your area of expertise, what would you say, who is your customer and who is your customer's customer? In sports management.
In sports, speaking from the point of view of a sports industry, if I have a sports firm, then the person I'm trying to target to sell my goods is the customer, and in turn, if he's trying to give it to someone, that is the customer's customer, because in turn, both of those guys or both of those organizations will try and get a mindset about my company. So my company's reputation is going to be at stake for the goods that I sell.
When you say sports management, are you talking in terms of sports equipment that you're selling?
Sir, a broad concept, not just sport equipment.
But give me a specific concept so that I can break it out. Give me a specific.
Okay, you can say it in terms of selling sports equipment also. That is also a big chunk of it. So yeah.
Okay, but you specifically, what is your interest in sports management? What does that look like? You're selling. You want to sell your goods and services to whom?
We can say we just want to bring up a manufacturing company for, let's say, cricket gear, and we want to target all those youths in Mumbai to start with, and then we want to expand. But basically the target market will be the youths. Those are playing cricket in Mumbai and then across the country. So basically cricket gear for youths.
Yeah, so that is a great example, right? And so you will start to think in terms of, end of the day, even if you sell through wholesalers or you sell through a school or if you're selling through an academy, right? So that may be the first level. That would be your customer. But your customer's customer is the people who are actually using that sports equipment, isn't it? Right? So a better understanding of actually the final user, right? And understanding their needs, understanding their wants, understanding their discretionary income, understanding what is the reason they will actually buy a new bat or buy new pads, what is the change that is going on, and really understanding that to its really nth degree is going to now enable you to be able to actually go to your customer now and to be able to tell them, or even where they live, right? Where do they live? Where do these people live? Where do they play cricket, right? So it's really understanding that very well, and now being able to say, this is the best way to get to them. So wholesale may be one, going through a coach and, an academy and having key influencers or subject matter experts that are saying, hey, here is the best bat for you to use, or this is the best ball. So does that make sense? So the advice that I would give you is to really understand your supply chain by understanding your customer's customer and understanding your supplier's supplier. By understanding your supplier's supplier, you have a well-defined supply chain, and now you will know exactly how best to operate in that. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Very much.
Good.
Yeah.
So, sir, we all know the current situation with the pandemic, what has been, and also we got back a really disappointing news from the Sri Lankan cricket that 3 players have been given a ban of 1 year for breaching the bio bubble, the secured bio bubble. I mean to say. So, what are your views on this?
As far as the pandemic is concerned, I think we have to get through it. It's a time for us to be resilient. Like I said, my company, because we are a business that had to continue to work. So what I can tell you was where I'm working, it was the safest place to be, because a lot of people were social distancing, a lot of people were staying home, but sometimes even though they were physically safe, they were not emotionally safe, right? And so I created an environment where I tell people it was the safest place to be, because not only were people physically safe, they were also emotionally safe, because they have work to do. God created us for work, and when we are working, there is so much other stuff that we are not doing. So that is my view on it.
Sir, coming to the next question, you mentioned that your father used to play cricket. So, can you just tell us about your father cricketing journey, and which player you used to like the most, and what cricketing values he transferred to you, and you just followed in your journey?
So the short answer is you have to read the book. The book is available all over India. It's available in Hindi, it's available in Urdu, it's available in Punjabi, it's available in Tamil and Telugu. So you ought to get the book, because that's where I actually talk about that. And in many cases, it's been given out for free. So I'm not saying this to you because I want to make money on it. I actually created it as a way to be able to help youngsters like you to be able to learn the game of cricket. There are 30 values that my father taught me, and I am taking cricket values like, taking the front foot, hitting off the front foot, right? And I talk about hitting off the front foot is very important. I talk about initiative, right? How we need to take initiative in life. Initiative to check out people before we actually meet them, right? Maybe even, get an opportunity to read a couple of chapters of the book that they wrote before you bring them on to your television program or your program to say, hey, let me understand a little bit of the content. Does that make sense? Right? So that's one. Another one is I talk about reading the googly, because I'm a left-hand bat. My father would tell me if a leg spinner bowls you on the middle stump, you can hit him for 6, right? Because he understood. My father was a leg spinner, and he understood for a left-hander, if you pitch on the middle stump, the ball is going to break the other way. So there was a lot of stuff like that he taught me. He talked to me about how to fill in the slips, as example I gave you. So there are 30 different chapters in the book. You ought to read the book. You ought to have the people who you are talking to read the book, because it's a great way to not only learn about cricket, but more importantly to learn about life, right? Because for most of us, cricket is something that we do for fun. It's what we do for pleasure, right? But life is not all fun, right? Life is serious business, but we can take things that are familiar right? And to be able to apply those things to those, we can take things that are familiar and apply that to unfamiliar or more complex things. And that's what I've done with my book, and you ought to read it.
Sure, sir, sure. We will surely read the book and recommend it to our friends as well to read it. It's a wonderful journey that you have shared in the book, obviously. So, coming towards the last question, I just have one question in mind that you're doing a lot for people who have the love for cricket, but they cannot afford cricket equipment and literally go and play out there. So, how has that journey been? What made you to contribute towards the lives of people who just want to go out there and play, but they don't have enough resources? So, what made you take that decision?
So thank you for asking me that question. If you look at my shirt, I've created a club called Micah Cricket Club. My oldest son's name is Micah, but it's also in the Bible, there is something called in Micah 6:8. The prophet Micah asked God, what does it take to please you? Right? And then he answers that question by saying it takes three things. It says, show mercy, act justly, and one other thing. It says, act justly, love mercy, and let me tell you, walk humbly. Right? Walk humbly. So those are the three values that we use as a way to be able to get Micah Cricket Club going. This year alone, we will actually start about 100 Micah Cricket Clubs in Zimbabwe, in Sri Lanka, in India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. We will have 100 Micah Cricket Clubs. And it's our way of being able to use the game of cricket to be able to allow people to, be able to come to their full potential, their individual potential, their collective potential, and to build social capital that way. I thought it would be a great way for young people to be able to learn about the game of life. And so that's why we started it, and it's going really, really well. So this year alone, we will do 100 cricket clubs, and then our plan is for next year to do another 100.
That's great, sir.
That's great, sir. We wish you all the luck. There are not many people who are looking to spread the awareness and trying to help people out there purchasing equipment and whatever you are trying to do. So we're done with the questions. We will move to the it's just a 5 to 10 minute fun segment wherein there are two segments in it called rapid fire and this or that. So guys, you can begin.
Yeah.
So coming to the next segment, that is the fun element, we call it the rapid fire question. So we will be asking you the 5 questions, just a one word answer for that. So I'm starting with it. The first question, your favorite traveling destination?
I would say Italy.
Okay. So second question, the one thing that you regret in your journey?
When I didn't get to spend more time with my parents.
Yeah, that's true, sir. So the third question is your favorite entrepreneur?
I would say probably Sir Richard Branson from Virgin.
Okay, sir. So the fourth question is one place in India which you want to visit?
I would like to go to the Himalayas.
Yeah, I think that's the favorite destination for each and everyone.
Yes, everyone has it.
Indeed. Okay, so the last question of this segment is your favorite cricketer?
Would be Sir Richards.
Indeed,
Wow.
Indeed.
Sir, apart from Viv Richards,
So you're not going to remember this person, but he's a guy by the name of Bernard Julian. He also played he was a left-arm medium and fast bowler and a right-hand bat. He played under Clive Lloyd. His name's Bernard Julian. I have had the good fortune of actually visiting with Bernard Julian in his home in Trinidad. And I was, like I said, I was a young 12-year-old when the West Indies toured us. So it was a very impressionable age. And so Bernard Julian was somebody who was funny, he was extremely talented. People would actually say that he was going to be the next Gary Sobers. He never lived up to that, but I would hero worship him. And so I had an opportunity. I was coming back from Guyana. I was traveling I had gone to Guyana to watch some cricket. I was coming back and I had 4 hours to spend in Trinidad. And I landed, and the tour guide was taking me and showing me, he was doing like a city tour, and he told me the itinerary, and then he said, hey, is this good? I said, yes, but he said, is there anything else you would want to do? And I said, yes, I would love to meet Bernard Julian. And he said to me, Bernard Julian is my uncle. And I thought, he's just saying that. He made 2 phone calls, and he was able to not only talk to Bernard Julian on the phone, but he was able to convince Bernard Julian that me and my friend were going to actually visit him. And we did that. In fact, if you look up SAMT Network, www.samtnetwork.com, I did an interview with him, just like how you guys are doing with me. I had the good fortune of sitting on the front veranda of Bernard Julian's house and talking to Bernard Julian about this. And so he's somebody that I talk to. I have a good relationship with him. I talk to him about once a month. And so other than for Sir Richards, I would say Bernard Julian was my hero.
That's great, wonderful story, sir. Actually, the entire team that played under Sir Clive Lloyd was really a very dangerous team. I mean, the world used to fear the West Indies back then.
Yeah.
So Omkar, you can go ahead with the this or that segment. So this is basically this or that. We give you 2 options, and you have to choose one out of them.
Okay, sir. So our first one is Warren Buffett or Steve Jobs.
I would say Steve Jobs.
Beaches or mountains?
Beaches.
Entrepreneurship or sports?
Oh, that's a tough one. Entrepreneurship.
Okay.
Sir, according so you're in USA, so the winter or the autumn season?
Autumn.
Okay. NBA basketball or baseball major league?
I don't have interest in both of them, but I would say baseball.
Okay.
That's it. We are done with it.
Yes, so we are done with the session. Thank you very much for giving us your time and coming over to have a chat with us. We really appreciate it.
Make sure to follow us on all the platforms on social media. We are the Third Man Cricket Show. We are active on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and even YouTube. So make sure to hit the bell icon on YouTube as well, where we bring you daily analysis on match days, weekly podcasts, and experts corner shows like today. So we will be really glad if you give us your support. And also, guys, keep yourself safe and your family safe, and follow all the safety protocols and get yourself vaccinated if possible. And till then, I really hope all of you have a great day. Thank you for joining us.